Hello, and thank you for being here, right at this exact moment. If you are a Pisces, or if you somehow found yourself stopping at this video without knowing why, stay with me for just a little while longer. Some messages do not arrive when we go searching for them. They arrive when we are finally ready to listen. There are moments in life when everything feels strangely quiet. Not better, not worse, just still. A deep pause, where you begin to wonder whether everything you have endured has truly been leading somewhere. And it is often in moments like these that life prepares a turning point you never saw coming. What I am about to share is not about instant miracles, and it does not promise loud, dramatic change. It speaks of something far more real, far closer than you realize. A subtle signal quietly forming in your life. A sign that a door you once believed was closed has simply been waiting for the right moment to open. If you are ready, slow your breath for a moment, because this story begins in a moment that looks completely ordinary, yet carries the power to change everything that follows. There are moments in life, Pisces, that arrive without noise, without fireworks, without an audience. And yet, when they appear, you know immediately that you are standing before something different. Not because it demands attention, but because it quiets everything inside you. Like the instant a room suddenly goes silent, and you can hear your own heartbeat more clearly than ever before. These moments often come unexpectedly. A short phone call, a message that seems ordinary, a simple invitation, or a meeting arranged so quickly you barely have time to prepare yourself. But one thing is unmistakable. The energy of hesitation is gone. No more circling around the truth. No vague promises. No words meant only to soothe without leading anywhere. You feel a sense of certainty in the air. A different kind of certainty. As if someone has thought about this for a very long time and finally stepped forward to say, now is the moment. And strangely enough, Pisces does not need long explanations. Your intuition recognizes it instantly. This feeling is not like before, when you had to convince yourself to trust or reassure yourself that maybe this time would be different. No. This time, calm arrives before excitement. You may find yourself standing still for a few seconds, not out of fear, but because something new is opening inside you. Like standing before a large door, unlocked, no need to knock, simply waiting, already open. What makes you pause is not doubt, but the clear awareness that once you step through, life will no longer be the same. Pisces has walked a long road to reach this moment. Years of waiting for answers. Moments of wondering whether you were giving your energy to something that might never arrive. Quiet nights when you told yourself to keep going, even without guarantees. None of that disappears. It stands quietly behind you now, like a strong foundation, so that when real opportunity finally appears, you are no longer shaking as you once were. What is coming does not ask you to prove yourself. It does not arrive to test your patience again. It comes with rare clarity, as if life has finally chosen to speak honestly. And in that honesty, you realize this is not luck or chance. It is the result of every day you chose not to give up, even when you could not see the light. This door does not open with a loud sound. It opens with a quiet sense of safety in your chest, a feeling that you no longer need to run faster or push harder. You simply step forward as you are now, with your scars, your lessons, and the softness you managed to preserve in a world that has not always been gentle with you. And as you begin to move ahead, you notice the light in front of you is not blinding. It is warm. It is enough to guide you, enough to help you see yourself more clearly, and enough to believe that this path will no longer be a battle you have to walk alone. And as that feeling slowly spreads through your chest, something else begins to take shape. Very slowly, very clearly, like still water settling after a long wave has passed. It is a sense of ease that Pisces has not allowed themselves to touch for a long time. Not the kind of comfort that comes from everything being perfect, but the kind that comes when you no longer have to hold your breath, waiting for something to fall apart. What is opening now reaches straight into the foundation of your life. Money, stability. The feeling of standing firmly on solid ground, instead of constantly swimming through uncertain currents. And what makes this different is the way it arrives. Quietly. without spectacle. There is no rush of sudden luck, no overwhelming moment followed by fear of losing it all. It comes the way underground water finds a new path, steady, persistent, strong enough to nourish land that has been dry for far too long. Pisces may begin to notice that numbers, opportunities, and resources are rearranging themselves in a way that finally makes sense. You no longer have to tense up planning every step ahead. You no longer wake up with the constant fear that if you slow down even a little, everything will collapse. Instead, there is a gentle sense of control, as if life is beginning to work with you rather than continuously testing you. There is a very subtle difference here. This is not luck that demands you change who you are just to keep up with it. This is luck that arrives because you have grown enough to hold it. You have learned to respect your own value, to stop underselling your time, your effort, your emotional energy just to survive. And because of that, what comes now carries the energy of sustainability, of a long future, of plans that do not need to be torn apart halfway through. This feeling may seem unfamiliar to Pisces, as if, for the first time in a long while, you can look ahead without the fear that safety will require too much sacrifice. You begin to understand that stability does not mean losing freedom, and money is no longer an emotional weight hanging over your head. It becomes a tool, a support, a way to breathe deeper, move slower, and choose more carefully what truly deserves a place in your life. And in that moment, you may find yourself smiling softly. Not because everything is finished, but because you know you are moving in the right direction. There is no longer the feeling that you must chase luck. This time, it walks beside you, step by step, close enough to feel, steady enough to trust, and lasting enough for you to begin imagining a life where you are not just surviving, but truly living. And as you begin to settle into this new rhythm, another change quietly takes place, so subtle that without enough awareness, you might miss it entirely. It is the feeling of your body no longer tightening the moment you wake up in the morning, a deeper breath that you no longer have to remind yourself to take. The moment you realize you no longer need to brace yourself for a day filled with resistance and survival. The things that once exhausted Pisces begin to lose their weight, not because they disappear completely, but because you are no longer carrying them the way you used to. The pressures that once forced you to hold everything together, to pretend you were fine, to endure quietly, begin to step back. They make room for a life that moves more smoothly. You work with just enough focus without burning yourself out. You make decisions without punishing yourself for hours afterward. You allow yourself to rest without guilt. A very real sense of relief starts to spread through your everyday life. Tasks that once drained too much energy become simpler, cleaner, more efficient. You no longer feel the need to constantly fix everything. You no longer take responsibility for what was never yours to carry. You no longer hold the world upright with your own strength alone. And strangely enough, the moment you stop over-sacrificing, everything begins to function better. Pisces has always been someone who gives, someone who endures, someone who places the needs of others before their own. But now, life is teaching you a very different lesson, that gentleness is not weakness, that setting burdens down is not the same as giving up, and that you do not need to be exhausted to deserve good things. You begin to notice more open space in your day. Space is no longer filled with worry, but with presence. You listen to yourself more clearly. You feel small moments of joy that were once buried beneath pressure. A warm cup of coffee, a quiet afternoon, a conversation without defenses. These are not grand rewards, but they are signs that you are finally living in alignment with your own rhythm. And within this lightness, there is a deep kind of growth taking place. You begin to understand that life does not always need to be a test of endurance. Some seasons exist so you can rest, so you can recover, so you can enjoy what you have patiently built. You no longer spend your energy just trying to keep everything in place. Now, that energy is used to nourish yourself, to enrich your inner world, and to move forward with a presence that is steadier, gentler, and yet far more powerful than anything you have known before. And as life settles into this quieter rhythm, as your heart no longer has to brace itself to survive, another movement begins to appear, very softly. very slowly, like familiar footsteps echoing through an old hallway. Pisces feels it before the mind can even name it, a sensation that is both unfamiliar and deeply familiar, like suddenly remembering a scent tied to a person, a memory, a chapter you once believed had closed for good. There is someone who once stepped out of your life in silence. No drama, no arguments, no complete explanation, just an absence left behind. Time passed and you learned how to live with that space. You did not chase. You did not demand answers. You allowed everything to settle, the way Pisces often does when the heart has grown tired. And then, at a moment you did not expect, that silence begins to dissolve, not through loud apologies, not through grand declarations, but through something deeply human, a simple check-in, a conversation that starts slowly, a presence returning without the pressure of recreating the past exactly as it was. What makes this moment special is not who this person is, but who you are when you stand in front of them. Pisces is no longer the version of yourself that once gave everything away just to preserve a connection. You listen with a heart that has grown wiser. You observe with eyes that have known pain, but no longer close themselves off. And you realize that whether this is a love that once remained unfinished or a meaningful relationship seeking repair, you are standing in a very different place now. It may be someone you once loved before truly understanding one another, or someone who once walked beside you closely before misunderstandings and difficult seasons pulled you in separate directions. This return does not carry the energy of pulling you backward. It carries a quieter question. Can we meet again, this time as more honest versions of ourselves? Pisces can feel clearly that this is not an emotional test. No one is here to shake your balance. No one is here to reopen old wounds. Instead, the conversation feels like a bridge placed with great care, strong enough for you to step onto, yet open enough to allow you the freedom not to cross if it no longer feels right. And that respect softens your heart. There may be moments when you feel a gentle stirring inside, not from regret, but from recognition. Recognition that both of you have walked separate paths, have changed, have learned the lessons you needed to learn. And if something reconnects, it is not born from emptiness, but from the fact that both of you are more whole than before. Wherever this connection leads, it marks an important emotional turning point. Pisces learns that not every closed door was a failure. Some doors closed so each person could grow, could understand themselves before becoming calm enough to open them again. And in that calm, you are no longer afraid of loss. You know you can stay. You also know you can leave and still remain yourself. As the conversation gently settles, as eye contact, tone, and even silence find their proper place, Pisces feels something very clear. Your heart is safe enough to receive and strong enough to choose. And within that balance, a new light begins to spread, guiding you forward softly, with awareness, and with deep trust in what is still waiting for you further down the path. And as old connections find their proper place again, as emotions settle enough to no longer dictate every decision, Pisces begins to see the world differently, calmer, clearer, as if the fog that once blurred your vision is slowly lifting, revealing shapes and truths you had only sensed before, but never fully seen. There was a time when Pisces simply observed. You watched someone else being praised, recognized, placed high above the rest. You saw them walk confidently beneath the lights. You saw them receive admiration, opportunities, positions that, on the surface, seemed well-deserved. And you said nothing, not because you were unaware of the truth, but because you understood that some things do not need to be exposed with words. Time always has its own way. You chose silence. You chose to focus on your own work. You chose to do what was right, to act with integrity, to follow things through to the end, even when no one was watching. There were moments when that silence caused you to be overlooked, moments when you wondered whether you were moving too slowly in a world that favors shine over substance. But deep inside, Pisces held on to a very quiet belief that true value does not need to shout. And then, very gradually, the wheel began to turn. There was no loud collapse, no major scandal, no dramatic accusations, just small details emerging. Contradictions that could no longer be hidden. Results that no longer matched the image that had been carefully constructed. Truth did not need a spotlight. It stepped forward on its own when there was no longer enough energy to keep it concealed. Pisces witnessed this with surprising calm, no satisfaction, no desire for revenge, just a quiet nod to yourself. Because you knew this was not a reward for patience, but the natural balance of life. When someone rises on unstable ground, slowing down is only a matter of time. Meanwhile, your own path opened in a very different way, not suddenly, not dramatically, but clearly. People began to notice you, not because you spoke louder, but because what you did had depth that could no longer be ignored. Your value did not need promotion. It spread naturally through consistency, through responsibility, through the way you showed up when things became difficult. Recognition came quietly, a look of trust, a serious offer, a position given not out of emotion, but because of real capability. And you realized you did not need to push forward to be seen. When the time is right, space opens for you. The most beautiful part of this shift is not that someone else loses their position, but that you step into the light without losing your kindness. Pisces does not become someone else when recognition arrives. You remain yourself. The difference is, you are no longer standing at the edge. You are invited to the table. You are listened to. You are trusted. And in that moment, you understand that fairness does not always arrive early. But when it does arrive, it arrives precisely. Not the wrong person, not the wrong time. You do not need to prove that you were right. Life has already done that for you, quietly, fairly, and with deep humanity. And from that solid foundation, you continue forward, no longer carrying doubt about your own worth. Only a gentle confidence remains, knowing that the path you chose, even if slower, has always been the true one. And as you stand here now, looking back at the road you have already walked, a very gentle truth begins to reveal itself. You were never as weak as you once believed. You were simply someone who chose to endure in silence. Someone who chose to hold on to their values, even when no one was watching. In those days, Pisces did not argue, did not compete, did not explain why you deserved more. You simply kept living, kept doing what was right, kept your heart soft enough to avoid becoming bitter and strong enough not to break. Now, you no longer need to step into nameless battles. You do not need to prove that you are right. You do not need to convince anyone to understand you. You do not need to become a more acceptable version of yourself just to be allowed to stay. What could not see your value has quietly fallen away. What was never meant for you has gently stepped back. And what is coming now arrives with unmistakable respect. You may feel a little strange as life begins to flow more easily. Strange not having to stay guarded. Strange receiving recognition without conditions attached. But this is the sign that you have entered a new chapter. A place where you no longer have to pay with pain in order to earn stability. A place where what you receive finally reflects what you have given, honestly and fairly. Pisces, what is coming is not a random reward. It is the natural result of all the times you chose not to give up, even when you were exhausted. It is the result of the moments you stayed silent to avoid causing more harm to others and to yourself. It is the result of preserving compassion in a world that can be unforgiving to those who feel deeply. And now, the most important thing is not what you do next, but how you allow yourself to receive. Allow yourself to accept stability without fearing it will disappear. Allow yourself to step into the light without guilt for finally being seen. Allow yourself to rest inside your own life instead of merely existing to meet the expectations of others. There is no need to rush, no need to make everything bigger or faster. Simply be present with the trust that the road ahead no longer asks you to sacrifice yourself just to keep moving forward. You have come far enough, deep enough, and truthfully enough to be here. And in that quiet stillness, as you take a deep breath and feel life supporting you instead of testing you, you will know. You did not come here to fight anymore. You came here to live, to receive, to build a future that truly reflects who you are. And this time, you do not need permission from anyone to be worthy of that.